Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive now. For anyone new here, we kind of have this unique format, where we take your sources, whatever you send us, and we pull out like the most interesting and insightful stuff we can find, and we put it all together into this kind of personalized deep dive just for you. And for today's episode, we're diving into the entrepreneurial journey of this Egyptian businessman, Ahmed Tarek. And all of this is coming from one single Arabic language interview that one of you listeners sent to us. And we're going to try to break it down for you guys. So just from looking at it already, his story, it's more than just about making a million.
Mm.
You know, it really gets into how important thinking differently is and seeing how even small choices can lead to big results.
Yeah, and what's interesting about Ahmed's story is how much it really focuses on education and the importance of empowering others alongside, actual financial success.
Right. Like it's not just about the money for him. So to start with, I guess at the beginning, Ahmed earned his first million Egyptian pounds back in 1999. And he did it through like equipment dealerships.
Mm.
But the thing is, he didn't inherit this or anything, Like back then, dealerships were seen as this kind of exclusive thing, almost like a privilege. And it seems like Ahmed saw a different way to approach it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He actually saw a market need that everyone else was overlooking. The interview talks about how construction companies at the time, they were struggling to get certain types of heavy machinery. And Ahmed had this idea that you could go directly to the manufacturers, cut out that middleman, and be able to offer these much better deals. So he went straight to the companies themselves and actually convinced them to give him a chance.
I love that. Like he basically said, give me a trial run, let me prove it works. And if I fail, well, you haven't really lost anything. That takes some serious confidence.
Yeah, and his gamble, it totally paid off.
Yeah.
But, the interview also talks about these first 6 months he had, which were really tough. It sounds like it took some time for the market to kind of shift in his favor.
It sounds like persistence is key. Like you can't just have a good idea. You got to stick with it when things get rough. But one of the things that comes up is that Ahmed is really clear that financial success is just a tool for him. It's not like the end goal. It's more about education and empowering others.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's this great story he tells about a young man who was going to take his inheritance money. And Ahmed actually advised him against it.
Right.
That stuck out to me too. Instead of just handing over a bunch of cash, Ahmed encouraged the guy to use that money and learn some new skills, build a solid reputation. And he argued that earning trust is so much more valuable than any amount of money you could just get handed.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how he mentors people. He really wants them to think long term, to create something sustainable,
Yeah.
not just quick cash.
And then after building this great business in Egypt, Ahmed made a big move to the UAE in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And he describes the UAE as this place that magnifies opportunities. Everything is amplified, the risks and the rewards.
Yeah. You could say that about the UAE. It has this crazy business environment. Everything moves so fast. And I think this move to the UAE, it really set the stage for his future ventures and the challenges he had to overcome later on.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into those challenges, especially how he tackled the offshore marine vessel industry. He didn't do things the conventional way, right?
No, definitely. Not at all.
So we left off with Ahmed. He's already made his first million, right? He's moved to the UAE. And now he's diving into this whole new challenge, the offshore marine vessel industry, which honestly just sounds intense.
Yeah. It's a pretty complex industry for sure. But the really interesting thing is instead of doing what everyone else does, buying vessels, he actually started by focusing on managing them and optimizing them for other owners.
Hold on, so he didn't actually buy any ships himself?
Dope.
Wow. Everyone else in the industry must have thought he was crazy.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But he had this really unique perspective.
Right.
He actually predicted that the market was going to take a downturn. And he was getting ready for that while everyone else was still thinking about expanding.
And he was right, wasn't he? The interview mentions that he was perfectly positioned to offer solutions to save people money when the demand for these vessels actually did drop.
Exactly. And that's where his innovative thinking really comes into play.
Right.
He actually introduced some new Uber-like models to the industry, like fractional ownership of vessels.
I'm not really familiar with that. What does fractional ownership mean exactly when we're talking about ships?
It's a pretty simple idea, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like timeshares, but for ships.
Yeah.
Instead of one company having to pay for the entire cost of owning a vessel, multiple companies can share ownership and just pay for the time they actually use it.
Oh, that makes sense. Especially when the market is down and companies are trying to cut costs so they don't have ships just sitting around costing them money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ahmed basically took that whole sharing economy model and applied it to a really traditional industry and let companies optimize their fleets and save a ton of money during a tough time. It shows how he could see opportunities where other people just saw problems.
There's this other part of the interview that really fascinated me. Apparently, a bank offered to buy out all of Ahmed's partners and give him complete control of the company.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was a pretty tempting offer, too.
And what does he do? He turns them down.
He did.
I was floored when I read that. He says that he wasn't trying to become some all-powerful CEO. His goal was to build a business that could thrive even without him being there every day.
Yeah, he really goes against a lot of what people think success is about.
Right.
He's not driven by ego or this need to control everything. He actually wants to create something that can last long term.
And that says a lot about how confident he was in the systems he put in place and the team he built. Now, speaking of the future, Ahmed seems super excited about the potential of young Egyptian tech talent.
Yeah, he really emphasizes their dedication and how quickly they can adapt to new things. He's truly impressed by this younger generation.
It's really interesting how he contrasts that with his own experience starting a tech business back in the 90s,
Yeah, right.
dealing with dial-up modems and very limited access to information.
Yeah. It really highlights how much technology has changed and how much easier it is now to access resources. Ahmed sees the technology sector in Egypt as this huge opportunity for growth, and he believes it can compete globally.
Which brings us back to his passion for education. He's a big believer in developing practical skills, especially things like coding and programming, because those can lead to high-paying remote jobs.
Absolutely. He sees it as a way to bridge that gap between traditional education and the skills that the job market actually needs, especially in the global market. And this isn't just an idea for him, he's actually taking action.
Yeah, he's working on building an educational platform to offer affordable training programs in those high-demand fields. He even specifically mentions German language skills for customer service and technical roles.
That's a really strategic move. He's focusing on a niche where there's a ton of demand, but not a lot of people filling it, which gives young Egyptians a huge advantage in the global job market.
It's clear that Ahmed isn't afraid to challenge conventions. He sees opportunities that other people don't. And throughout the interview, he keeps stressing how important it is to think differently and trust your gut.
He even talks about how he deliberately chose paths that other people weren't taking, even when it didn't seem logical. And those decisions ultimately led to his success.
It's inspiring. It shows that sometimes going against the grain can lead to the best results. And a lot of his success comes down to this end game perspective that he's always talking about.
Yeah, he's not just chasing the next big thing.
Yeah.
He's thinking about where he wants to be in the long run and the impact he wants to have.
It's such a powerful mindset, and it really makes me think, about all my own goals and how I'm approaching them. Am I just kind of reacting to things as they come up, or am I really working towards something bigger? Ahmed's story really highlights how we should all be thinking about our end game.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's really easy to get caught up in what you have to do every day and lose sight of that bigger picture. But when you have a clear vision of where you want to be, it's so motivating. And it helps you make those decisions that line up with your goals long term.
So for our listener, what does this all mean? Ahmed's journey shows that success, it doesn't just happen in a straight line. It takes challenging those assumptions you have, being adaptable, never stopping learning.
Yeah. It's about spotting those opportunities that other people miss.
Yeah.
And then having the guts to actually go after them, even when you have to take a different path than everyone else.
In his story, it really highlights how financial success can be used to create positive change, especially when it comes to education and empowering others.
Yeah, he's not just focused on building his own wealth. He's using his success to invest in the future of other people. And I think that's a really valuable lesson for anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, or really anyone who wants to be successful in any field.
Definitely. At the beginning of this whole deep dive, we talked about how Ahmed's story, it's more than just making $1 million. And I think that's what makes it so interesting. It's a story about vision and sticking with it and using your success to help others.
Yeah, it's a story that really hits home on different levels. It's inspiring, insightful, and it gives you a new perspective on what it really means to be successful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Ahmed Tarek's journey, I have one final thought for you. The listener, Ahmed, really stressed how important it is to understand your end game. So I ask you, what is your end game? What are those steps, even the small, unconventional ones, that you can take today to move you closer to that?
And remember, Ahmed's journey was full of him doing the opposite of what everyone else was doing. That willingness to think differently, to go against the status quo, that's what made him stand out.
And with that, we've come to the end of our deep dive. We hope you found this exploration of Ahmed Tarek's journey insightful and inspiring.
And remember, even though this episode is over, your own journey of discovery and learning is just beginning.
Until next time, keep diving deep.